by the blood of our people are your lands kept safe.
I see in your eyes the same fear that will take the heart of me.
So do all who live to see such times.
By all that you hold dear, this good earth.
There's some good in this world, and it's worth fighting.
Welcome back, everyone. We are bringing big dropping news. Just the other day, this was announced, and it's really got everyone scrambling to figure out what the heck's going on. So, Warner Brothers is reportedly looking to turn The Lord of the Rings into a Star Wars-inspired franchise. You could also infill Marvel there as well. And as the article points out, it's shocking. It is definitely shocking, considering, you know, Rings of Power just came out last fall, and that had mixed reviews. I guess I'll be kind and say mixed reviews, and the fandom is kind of right now holding its breath for the other projects that we already knew about. War of the Rohirrim being the one film, and then some of the video games coming out as well, which we'll talk about on a different video, because this is going to be a video on its own. I mean, I am really excited about Lord of the Rings stuff. That's why we started this in the first place. And even I'm kind of like, maybe let's slow down a little bit and, let's feel the room out before we...
I don't know. I mean, we can have young Aragorn. They had a bunch of pictures, right?
So, let me just real quick say before you get into these...
The Adventures of Legolas and Gimli.
Yeah, before we get into these, there's a quote. There are no scripts yet. But what I want to say is we will definitely try to pitch some ideas to these people, because we have a ton of ideas now.
You could do kind of a Pirates of the Caribbean thing, but it's just focused on Numenor.
Now, okay, so I guess it's important to note that we've tried to do this before, and we've done a terrible job covering the rights that different people have when it comes to Lord of the Rings. And so I didn't want to get into that again. But it seems like the rights that they have are explicitly the Lord of the Rings trilogy books and the Hobbit books as they're published, minus the appendices, potentially.
They don't have. I thought they had the appendices.
I think they might. It's unclear, because Amazon has the appendices, which they bought from this company that is working with, with Warner Brothers. So that's the.
So
problem.
who do we need to subscribe to get all this content?
I don't know. That's the crazy thing, is I honestly don't know. So.
I can't afford another streaming service. I can't.
I know. Tell me about it. So yeah. So like Amazon has the rights to develop a TV series based on the Second Age and the references made in the appendices to that age, as well as any books that were written that included snippets from other
But we're gonna
books.
So there's gonna just be two competing universes here, like
Well,
the Amazon universe and the Warner Brothers universe.
Well, this is the problem. Yeah. So I think partly a good aspect is that Warner Brothers seems to only have access to the Third Age, or at least that's the only thing that they claim to be looking at producing. So in that way, the only overlap will be characters that have spanned both ages, and at that point, they don't need to look or even act similar, because so much has happened between the timelines. But what it does mean, and so while there won't be overlapping between Amazon and Warner Brothers necessarily, what it does mean is that within Warner Brothers, there will be overlapping, and that's where the gimmicky style that Marvel chooses to include in these post-credit scenes and stuff. I don't want that. I need it to be a little bit more serious than that. So maybe Star Wars is a better
So we sort
comparison.
of had we did kind of have this situation in Marvel for a bit, because
Yep.
Fox owned all the X-Men stuff.
That's
and,
right.
And did they own Spider-Man? Or did they own Spider-Man?
So Spider-Man was owned by Sony, I believe.
Okay, it was owned by Sony. So Sony owned Spider-Man, and then you had Fox owning all the X-Men stuff, and then Disney having everything else.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and also Netflix owned at the time a few, like they had Daredevil.
Netflix was running some shows, yeah.
Yeah, and then their rights fell through, and then they had to. They didn't. I guess they didn't have to, but like Disney just like bought the rights to those shows.
Disney pretty much does everything except Sony still owns Spider-Man.
Yeah, so whenever they do Spider-Man, they have to joint do it, and it's a mess. I mean, they're good. I actually like when Spider-Man's in them. I'm just saying, like, it's a mess to like hash out deals to like
include Spider-Man.
Because like my guess is because Sony only owns one character in the movie, and then Disney owns the rest. Sony comes in as like Spider-Man must have like 45% of the screen time, or something like weird like that, and then it ends up being very Spider-Man centric. I mean, heck, even in the Avengers, whenever Spider-Man comes in, it's kind of very focused on him and his relationship with Tony. And I mean, he's a fun character, I'll give him that. Like, in terms of all the characters, he's one of the more fun ones to follow, so it's not that bad. But anyway, yeah, that's so my issue is like, look at Marvel, look at Star Wars. People are tired of these things, and do you really want that for Lord of the Rings? That is my question. I would rather, if you're gonna do this, I would rather do it in a very long process over many years, and not just start cranking them out, because we already know we're getting Rings of Power every 2 years, and then maybe every year, depending on what happens next year and how if they're able to speed up. Because like they moved to a new location, I'm guessing that's partly why we're seeing.
That's rebuild sets.
Yeah, I'm hoping once they're established, they can speed it up. So even if it's not like every year on the dot, maybe it's every, I don't know, like 14, 15 months, something like that. Because 2 years is a long time. Like, you want to kind of ride the hype train a little bit. And
yeah,
like right now, like people who watched the Rings of Power, come next fall, it's not going to come out. And if they're not paying attention, they're going to completely forget about it. We won't, because obviously we keep talking about it. But like regular people will have completely forgotten about it, and then they won't even know to tune back in.
Yeah.
So 2 years just seems really weird. But my big concern is turning. I mean, this is what Tolkien himself was concerned about, and it's turning these stories into something it's not. This is not supposed to be a superhero or sci-fi style extravaganza, but set in Lord of the Rings. Like, these are like I want a little bit more seriousness to the tone of Lord of the Rings, and I don't think we're gonna be able to get that with all these different projects. You can have some fun with it, but I mean, look at Star Wars. Star Wars is trying to find its footing in that balance of being a kind of blockbuster, big screen hit, and then a small screen, deeper dive storytelling experience. And I mean, watching Star Wars, I can see that they're struggling to find that balance, especially with a bunch of different teams doing a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
So that's my concern, and that's where my fear goes, is that you oversaturate it and it becomes you almost wreck what made it great in the first place. I don't know if that's happened with Star Wars. It hasn't happened to me with Star Wars, but like yourself, like I know you're much more into it. Do you ever like find yourself like thinking back and like this isn't what, episodes 4, 5, and 6 were about? Like, we're getting completely off the rails now, and it's hard to go back.
That's an interesting question. I think I appreciate more content, but definitely some shows miss the mark. Some of them are good, some of them are not good. Yeah, and I kind of just accept it, but there's a lot of people who hate it. Yeah, of course they do.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, because like I mean, I do want more content too. I mean, that's why when we got really excited hearing Rings of Power coming out and War of the Rohirrim, and you know, to me that was enough to sustain my excitement. Those two pieces, and even if I had just heard like one more movie coming out and then another, like that might be the way to do it. But to come right out and say they want to do something on the level of Star Wars, and then for me to look at Disney's catalog of Star Wars and then like think about how much they're gonna have to just invent, because there's like, unless they're legit.
Yeah, and I mean, Star Wars has the benefit of, like, George Lucas is alive. You could theoretically ask him. I know they just do whatever they want anyway, but you could go up to him and say, "What do you think about this?"
Yeah.
But you can't do that with Tolkien, and he probably wouldn't like you doing this anyway.
No. Well, and so that's the other thing, is that you've got a lot of purists out there.
I mean, George Lucas did willingly sell this to Disney so that they could. He's just basically, he was tired of. He's getting kind of tired of doing it himself.
Yeah.
I think he just started a family again. He's old enough that, you know, he wants to be involved. He's already rich.
Yeah.
And he wants Star Wars stuff to still be produced. So his idea was, let's give it to Disney. And so it really had his endorsement. You can say that Disney's lost Lucas's vision, but he did give it to them. He gave them permission.
Even back in, I don't know if you know this, but back when he was doing, I believe it was Return of the Jedi, he was looking for other people to direct.
Yeah, Empire and Return of the Jedi, he did not direct.
Yeah, so like, so he was like looking already for other people to come in and take on the reins of that aspect.
But then he went ahead and directed episodes 1, 2, and 3 himself.
Yeah, which is weird. And like, that's where I'm like, I would rather have him stay on as a creative writer and just kind of like flesh out ideas with people, because sometimes I think people who are coming in get kind of confused by what his initial idea was, and then they bring something else to it, and then for me anyway, it doesn't quite fit, and everyone has to kind of find ways to explain it into the story, and then it just becomes part of it, and then people like yourself and other YouTubers that talk more about Star Wars, they just talk about it like it's just common knowledge, and I'm sitting here going like, wait, why is that lightsaber purple? What's going on? So like, to me, I kind of like, I know the story. Samuel L. Jackson tells that story in an interview about he was the one to ask for a purple lightsaber.
Yeah, and then he said, sure.
Yeah, and Lucas said, sure. He didn't care. He's like, typically, you know, we do blue or green for good guys and red for bad guys, and you're a good guy, so you get blue or green. And Samuel Jackson's like, I'd like a purple one. And like, but then that becomes a big aspect of like deeper lore.
Like half red. Like,
purple
is a combination of blue and red.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like that kind of stuff, I think it'd be neat to get Lucas's take whenever they go to add something like that in, because I'm not even sure if Lucas came up with that idea, right? Because I don't know, like Lucas heard the idea of purple, and then he probably thought, oh yeah, you're kind of like half good, half bad, but you're more on the good side, and that's kind of neat. But like, I don't think he like took it any further than that, and then other writers came in and started adding to like what that means and why that makes Mace so much scarier than all that kind of stuff.
And that's how he beat the Emperor, because he used his dark side against him.
Right. So yeah, like it's. I think it'd be helpful to include him, and actually, we're gonna get to a part of this coming up in another video. But there's something that this is going to allude to. In fact, actually, I think that's it for this one. I think if you have any more to say on this exact topic, because we got more videos on this new franchise coming next. I just wanted to get this one out there quickly because this has just been released.